Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, and welcome to Work Trends with Megan M. Biro. Whether you're here to network, learn, or share, we want you to have fun. During this live broadcast and Twitter chat, we'll discuss the future of work with smart and entertaining guests who value today's business and its impact on the world of work for the future. Stay tuned, because we start in 3, 2, 1.
Hey. Welcome to another informative Talent Culture Work Trends live podcast and Twitter chat. Shout outs to all of you sponsors and friends. I want to give a special thank you to everybody who makes this possible every week for us to be live. I am so excited to have the one and the only Daniel Newman with us today. And I have to tell you, I'm home. I'm at the home office in Cambridge today. It is the most perfect summer day. Like, they even said that on the weather forecast this morning. They were like, this is it. Like, go out there and make the most of it. So life is good over here. I'm not doing any traveling. I'm home for a bit. Daniel's here with me, as I said. He is, by the way, at Daniel Newman UV on Twitter. He's a valued business partner of mine. He's an intelligent author, speaker, and thought leader. And here's a really fun factoid for all of you. He's actually one of my very first friends in the world of social media, and we go back several years. And we might have some fun stories for you all later on that. But today, we're going to be talking about something kind of interesting. We're going to be talking about dragons. What they are, how to build your business to become a dragon. I think this is so cool. So what's a dragon, you ask? It's an agile company fit to adapt, innovate, and thrive, even in the most disruptive times. And Dan and I have both seen disruptive times being in the digital space for quite a while now. I mean, I think he and I go back, we want to say 6 or 7. He says 6, I say 7. So we'll talk about that in our podcast today. But the ever-popular unicorn trends tend to rely on risky and experimental business models. Dragons, however, are established companies that continue to leverage their original startup mentality to systematically innovate their way to profitability. Built on purposeful reinvention, scalable market dominance, and a commitment to long-term success, dragons are increasing in popularity. So I want everyone here to learn with us, because you know that I get really excited about online learning, right? And we want to learn what it takes to be a dragon from him today. He's recently co-wrote the popular business book, Building Dragons, Digital Transformation in the Experience Economy. So welcome, Dan. How are you?
I'm doing well, Megan. Thanks for having me on the show. And, yeah, you spilled the beans a little bit. We have known each other for years. But I'd like to believe deep down that you didn't only bring me onto the show because you knew me, but because the work trends community, the talent culture community, could benefit from learning a little bit about these dragons, unicorns, but more importantly, about digital transformation, disruption, innovation, and experience, and how it's really changing the way companies hire, the way people work, the way people live, and how all this tech is blending in our lives and really changing everything about how we spend our time.
Well, absolutely. And I will say that we are friends and we're partners in the business sense, right? We work together on a lot of initiatives, and I will tell everybody that we have a lot to learn from you. Anybody that doesn't know Dan yet, let me give you just a little bit of his background. His bio is just amazing. It continues to amaze me that not only are we still friends, we haven't had one of those feuds on Twitter or Facebook yet. Can you believe it? After all these years? After 12 years of running technology companies, including a CEO appointment at the age of 28, Dan traded the corner office for a chance to drive the discussion, just like today, on digital economy, right? He talks a lot about how it's forever going to change the way business is done. So not only does he have time to be here today, listen to this, you guys. Listen to his bio. He's an MBA, adjunct business professor, Forbes contributor, 5-time author of best-selling business books, including The Millennial CEO and, of course, Building Dragons, which we want to talk about. He is a proud entrepreneur. He's a partner in 4 companies. He's a pianist, a huge soccer fan, a proud dad, and a new dad to Matthew, by the way. And he has Broad Suite Media Group and V3B, a family of companies in the analysis, media, and marketing world, and that focuses on the intersection of people, technology, and business. So clearly, we have a lot to talk about today. So let's get into it, shall we? So you've been pretty busy, huh?
I am. New baby boy, Matthew, almost 6 weeks old now, but I moved. I've spent a lot of time on the road launching new companies, another company to launch, and potentially a very interesting strategic alliance that's going to be announced, but I can't say too much about that yet. But Megan and I will have to talk more about that soon. And there's a lot of great things going on, and a lot of it is around the way tech is transforming business and people and culture. And that's why I've always loved and appreciated the work that you do, is because you're spot on it. You know, I put a video out today about people and technology, and I think too many businesses just, they get it wrong. They're too focused on technology for the sake of technology. And everything we do in business, pretty much everything we do in life, is about people.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that you and I have. I think that's why we've become friends to begin with, right? And that's why we've stayed in touch all these years, is that, yes, by the way, we are talking about an alliance that we'll talk to everybody more about. We'll make an announcement when he and I actually find time to sit down and talk, because that's what it's like to be an entrepreneur these days, right? We're busy. We're busy people, right? We're busy transforming and helping brands transform. That is so important. So let me ask you this, Dan, with the birth of Matthew and your move and everything you've got going on in your life, which congratulations, by the way, so excited for you. You've written other business books, right? What's compelling you right now to write about dragons? What is all this about? What's all this dragon hoopla? What's going on that?
Let's probably take it a little bit of a step back, right? So some of my books along the way had long titles. I wrote Evolve, Marketing as You Know It is Doomed, and then I wrote The New Rules of Customer Engagement. And one of the things that I, as a content guy, have long talked about is the importance of storytelling. And in the age of digital, in the age of fractured attention, we need to create imagery and stories that people can connect with. And so when I originally worked on this book, and with my co-author, Olivier Blanchard, who I need to give credit to because he's another smart dude, we were going to call the book Digital Transformation and the Experience Economy, because really what we wanted to talk about is the people, the technology, and experiences, and how they're changing the way we basically work and live our lives, okay? And one of the things we caught ourselves as marketers, right? So we are technologists, but we're also marketers, is that title was not compelling. That title was what the book was about. It wasn't a story. So what we started to do is we have to tell a story, Megan, about digital transformation. We have to tell a story that the CMOs and chief strategists at brands and the entrepreneurs and then the heads of operations at companies who read this book can connect with and say, okay, I get it, right? I get what they're trying to say. And trying to just talk about tech and people in themselves is kind of interesting. But then when you overlay it to something that almost everybody in the business world can understand, and that was unicorns and dragons. And so we all talk about these unicorn companies, right? Uber and Facebook and Google and Tesla, and these companies that come out of nowhere and get these billion-dollar valuations before they make any money. And then what happens is these inspiring entrepreneurs and business owners, they start to set a bar for themselves against those companies. And the problem with that is with disruption and change and transformation, right, Megan, hitting you every day of your life. Most companies, in fact, the overwhelming majority, 99.999% of companies will never be Uber, Facebook, Airbnb, Disney, you know, and Disney did it over a long time. But the point is there's a lot of small companies and medium companies and great companies that want to understand digital. They want to know how to transform. They want to know what is big data, mobility, cloud, Internet of Things, virtual reality, how is it going to impact their businesses. But then they're getting held to a standard that they'll never meet. And so being a dragon is all about being the best business you can be, the most adaptable, the most change ready, the most culturally focused, customer experience driven organization. And then how do you layer all these technologies in to drive performance to your bottom line and create a company that can sustain the turbulence that rapid tech change, globalization, and these other external forces are causing on their day-to-day operations?
I love the fact that you bring up the fact that we don't have to be focused on all these big brands. I've worked with big brands over the years, as many of you know. I've worked with the greatest brands on earth, right? I mean, heck, I worked with Google when they were a startup here, right, in Cambridge, and IBM, and Microsoft, and the list goes on. But I am so tired of hearing only, and this is all due respect to my friends at Google and the friends at big brands who are still innovating, which I appreciate. But thank you, Dan, for bringing up the fact that there's so many other brands that I feel like don't get their due, right? So the whole idea of making sure that even smaller brands need to tell a story. And actually, it's more imperative now than ever, right? You and I both know we've been in the social media world, in the storytelling world for long enough to be dangerous, right? So tell me this, and I'm sure the audience wants to hear just a little bit more about this. What is the specific connection between innovation and successful growth? Not just growth, but successful monetizable growth, in your opinion?
Well, I think the first thing is understanding that every business is unique, but innovation is something that can happen in a couple of different ways. I think everybody thinks, Megan, that innovation is like going from an analog to a digital camera, right? That was innovation, going from snapping pictures. But there was a million little small innovations that took place. There was new lenses, right? There was new lighting scenes. There was zooms. There was all kinds of different things that took place that were small little step-by-step innovations that a company could monetize and create profit around and build community around. And what happens is, I think for most businesses, we get caught up in innovation being what we sort of call disruption today, right? So going from taxis to Ubers is disruptive. But for instance, like what if a taxi just didn't smell bad? I know this sounds kind of funny, right, Megan? But what if taxi just held themselves to a higher standard in terms of the people they hired or the experience in their cars or making sure that temperatures were climate controlled, right? These would all be little innovations that a company could take to create a better experience for people. But instead what we do
Can I just say something? I have to interrupt you. The taxis here in Cambridge really do smell bad, actually. Like, I love you,
they all do,
Cambridge
though.
taxi, but you need to smell better. Like, we're done with that stale air. Like, that is so gross for us. We want you to be better. We need to start today, right here, right now. It's the No Smell campaign,
right.
Darn it.
Megan, off the soapbox. But the point is that there's a bunch of little innovations that can take place within a business, right? For instance, you're in the talent development space, right? For a lot of companies, innovation would be just going away from one annual review, right, to an ongoing process of evaluation and communication that could take place between a management and its employees using a combination of real-time, synchronous conversations that could take place in the office or online, and using some sort of, employment cloud, tool technology, right? Some HCM, some human capital management tool that would allow a company to put employees on a track and let them see their growth and their potential to rise up within an organization and what their benefits are. And the point is that we in this space, especially you in this space, have been talking about this forever, right? That there's new and better and more innovative ways to do it. But companies, for instance, they go, oh, well, we can't do it until we buy into this new technology. Well, an innovation can be something as small as just saying, hey, we're going to deploy a chat solution. We're going to use Slack, or we're going to use Yammer, or we're going to use, and what we want to do is we want to make sure that teams are talking collectively throughout the day, not wastefully, but productivity focused, but that there's a direct path between managers and employees where they can be talking all day long and getting feedback as needed to make sure projects are going. And it can be done at the convenience of the employee and the manager where it doesn't have to be something that inconveniences you, like doing 20 reviews at the end of the year, right? And in a time where one day or 1 week can feel like a year, for employees waiting for a year to get feedback is way too long.
Drag.
So I realize that's
just
sort of
way too long. Yep, I agree.
Yes, it's a sort of a micro example in your industry. But I guess what I'm saying is I think for most businesses, especially because most companies aren't Fortune 500. In fact, everyone except for the 500 biggest, right, are not Fortune 500 companies, and they don't have the same luxury, although they have their own challenges of endless, supplies of cash flow and whatnot. Is that little bits of innovation can make a massive difference, especially when it shapes behavior and culture. And so that's where I really tie in. What are little innovations that you can make in your organization day in and day out that create stronger cultures and better customer experiences? Those are the two things. And just note, when I say customer experience, I believe your employees are your first customers.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that, by the way. We love people, as you know, Dan, here in the talent culture community. I mean, heck, you've been part of this community since we all began here. So you understand that people hire people, right? People are at the center, and you and I can get as fancy on technology, and I can, be an analyst. I can put on that hat if you want me to, but the reality is when I'm putting on my analyst hat, what am I doing? I'm making sure that people are drawing that connection between new tech and productivity, right, and use, making sure that people actually use some of this. So tell me this, because we're going down kind of a pragmatic road right now, which I love. What are some startup mentalities that companies should hold on to as they grow? Because I work with a lot of really fast-growing companies, and, what are those things that they can hold on to and still be dragons as they scale?
Well, the whole premise of the dragon, Megan, is to keep your startup roots, to sort of keep your beta roots, right? That when you were small, you'd make decisions quickly. And then what happens is as you get bigger, that bureaucracy builds, right? I want to include these 10 people in on this decision. And then 10 becomes 100, and then you need 3 layers of sign-off. So one of the areas that, for instance, is with new technology, there's a couple different terms, so I'm going to get a little geeky here, but shadow IT is a term that gets used a lot, or kind of consumerization of IT. And that is a lot of times the best tech that can be used to solve your biggest people problems, okay, your centralized IT department doesn't know about. Because you guys have been, in bed with the big tech companies, and you've made massive investments in your tech, and you feel very fixed to use one type of tech over another. Small, fast organizations like Google got a lot of it right. You mentioned Google earlier, right, with Google for Work. Whether it's your email, your productivity, your Word docs, your Excels, your calendaring. And what they did is they created an ecosystem where a small business all the way up to the enterprise can quickly start, adapt, utilize all their tools, okay, without a whole lot of necessity for centralized IT. Now, there's always a place for IT to get involved, when it comes to compliance and governance, and you cannot completely ignore what they contribute. But at the same time, that's a preferred usage, and especially with companies that are so interested in recruiting young workers, Gen Z and millennials that are coming into the workforce now, because they don't, and I'm sorry, Microsoft, and we can have a talk about this offline, but they don't use Word. They don't use Microsoft Word. They don't use Excel. I get made fun of by younger workers when I send them a Word doc. They want to do. Right. They want to use document sharing. They want to live inside, okay, of a app that can be run off of a mobile on any device from anywhere, as long as you have a connectivity in the cloud. So that, for instance, is a great example. And another one that came up, of course, is, like I said, is collaboration and tools. So companies, they have their old collaboration suites that are very kludgy and require a ton of customization and adaptation. And then the employees are grabbing onto tools like Slack, and they start using them in little pockets. And so companies have key decisions here about how they can approach this, Megan. One way they can approach it is they shut everybody down and they say, we only use these tools, and you will use these tools, and you
what
can
happens
just guess
then,
how well that
right?
goes.
Well, how well does that go? I was just going to say, that doesn't go that well, right?
What do they say? The average employee, the average millennial has like 5 jobs in the first 6, 7 years. I don't have the stat in front of me, but it's a lot.
Right.
And,
it's a lot.
Part of it is I saw a stat the other day, though, that came out that said basically 80% of employees are looking to work for a company that they see as digital and digitally transformed. Okay. So
right. That's huge. Hey, everybody, by the way, that's huge. I want to take a moment and just think about that for a minute. Just think about this.
Yeah, I didn't mean to gloss
because
over that by any
Dan,
means.
No. I mean, that is such an important part of this discussion right now. It is so key to hiring and retaining talent right now. And you know, it's candidate experience, but it's beyond that, right? It's digital transformation, and that's what we're talking about right now when we say becoming a dragon. And I really want, because, I mean, you are so incredibly amazing and smart, right? And he's not even, hey, everybody, he's not even paying me to say this about him. Wait, he's not even paying me to say this about him, you guys. Isn't that cray-cray? But
I'm not going to be able to get out of my office if you keep it up.
I know. Actually, you know what, everybody? Forget it. Forget this whole thing. Digital transformation is not happening, and we're all in denial. No, I'm just kidding. It's actually happening, and that's one of the things that Dan and I share. We've always known that it's happening. We were probably, you know, two of the people in the wild world of online who knew this even when we first met many years ago, that this was happening, it was important, and I can't say enough about the fact that digital transformation and being seen as a brand who has the ability to be open-minded is so important, so important. So then how do we tie in technology with this business model? To me, it seems like a marriage made in heaven, right? But how do people do that, maybe that don't see that connection from A to B? Dan, in your opinion.
So where I was sort of going with that whole story is, you know, you have employees that know a lot about what's going on. Their ears are to the street. A lot of these younger employees coming in have been using technology from the day they were born. They are trying different apps. You know, I talk about the dragon. What makes the startups go is this rapid adaptation. It's like I call it disruption as a model within their own organization. They're willing to open up doors, try things, leverage them, utilize them, measure them with big data, fail, and then try another thing and break it. They're basically breaking themselves, right? They always talk about like these really great tech companies and they just break stuff. Well, this is kind of one of the things is big companies tend to limit the creativity, limit the outside influence. They want to control a lot of things. Management wants to have its finger on everything. And companies that are really strong and have strong adaptable cultures, you know, they understand the story, they understand the vision, they understand the purpose of what the company's trying to do. And when they understand all those things, it's very easy to get people to adopt new technology. The challenge is, Megan, and I use this quote, and it's my little soundbite, is, you know, companies shouldn't, they don't buy technology to solve technology problems. They buy technology to solve business problems. However, to solve business problems, you still need people. And no matter how fast the robots and the artificial intelligence and all that's coming, management, empathy, relationships, customer experience is primarily still driven by people. And if technology is not successfully adopted and utilized, then you can spend all the money in the world on it and it will fail. If you look back at most of your failed technology projects, it failed because people. And so companies need to focus on, you know, building strong cultures that accept change. And that's one of the big things is that you hear this, right?
I'm laughing because it's like, does the audience now see the connection? Why we're friends? Did you hear what he just said? Right?
Yeah, we've been talking about this.
It's all really
long.
About. It's all really.
But it's
I
not.
know, Dan. We've been tweeting about this. We've been podcast. Do you remember when we blogged? Remember 12 Most? Remember those days?
Gosh.
We're still here today.
We built a huge community around the idea of giving people what they want, which was content in the form of a list. Wasn't that amazing? But in the heart of it starts with companies that start with customer experience or employee experience at the center. It's culture driven first. When people believe in your vision, the mission, what the company stands for, it's easy to ask them to adopt and change. The problem is we ask people to, you know, we hold a gun to their head proverbially speaking, and say, here's our new technology, use it. And then you've got different generations, different employees with different values that go, I don't get why I have to change.
Right.
I'm comfortable. I like this. And that's what I said is like the real discussion around digital transformation isn't a discussion about technology. It's a discussion about change management. And then the layer is that technology can help you change, but until the company's willing and interested and passionate about changing, then the adoption will be slow and your tech projects will either go slower than you want, it will be less effective than you want, or they will just straight up fail.
So let me ask you this. Are there some industries or types of companies that are more likely to see success in aiming to be or becoming a dragon? In your estimation, not last year, right here, right now, today?
Well, I think it's holding yourself to the right standard and understanding what your business and your industry is capable of. You know, I think the first problem, I mentioned this very early on when I talk about the unicorns, we compare ourselves. Like, I own a research and analysis firm. I'm not going to compare myself to Uber. They're a software company, right? And so I think we have to understand in our industry, right, who's setting the bar? What's the standard? And what are we looking to achieve? And then how are we planning to evolve and take it to the next level? So, you know, part of it, though, is also understanding your core metrics. And that's one of the things I think a lot of people overlook. A lot of thought leadership never talks about, but it's that you cannot be a dragon if you can't afford to pay your bills. Okay? So by starting out and focusing on
Thank you for getting real, focused. Dan. See, we love this about him, right? We love this. And that's
I'm never going to hold back you.
But wait, hold on. That's the reality of transformation. That's the reality I've lived, Dan's lived, and many of our friends who have grown up with us on social media are living today. You have to find a balance, and you have to pay your bills. Seriously. Like, thank you for bringing that up and keeping it real for our audience. I think it matters.
Well,
you know?
You asked the question, right, is how do you become a dragon? When you can't, you know, it's always like, I always use the analogy when I talk about charity, the charity starts at home. If you can't afford to pay your own rent, how are you going to, you know, successfully help others? And it's the same with your business. You can't develop employees. You can't develop new products. You can't innovate. You can't create new strategic partnerships when you're just struggling to get by. And so that doesn't mean companies who are struggling, who are listening on this, can't become a dragon, but the first thing you have to do is get your company in shape. And that's where looking at digital, right, looking at new places to tell story, new media, new connections, better customer experience. So the first thing I tell any company to do that wants to transform, that wants to become a dragon is get your company to be completely customer-centric. And this is something you should be able to do in a day because it comes down to people. Now, of course, you have to get rid of the bad ones. You got to get rid of the bad management.
Right. I would say in a day is pretty lofty and overzealous, but we're happy if you want to do it in a week. Just saying.
Let me go back to why I say this is that if everybody understands that the company's success can change measurably by changing one characteristic about your business, and that is starting and ending with the customer in mind, right? So the customer is not always right. I'm going to say this. The customer is not always right, but the customer is always the customer. And too many companies, are focused on everything but that. They're focused on everything but the customer. Look, the customer can call you up and give you 100 reasons that don't make any sense at all. But if you want to keep them, you have to listen. You have to pay attention. You have to respond to them and give them an answer that attends to what their needs are, not yours. And sometimes you got to fight.
Wait, hold on.
You know,
we're down to 60 seconds, everybody. We are going to take this conversation over to the Twitters, and we're going to continue this for the next 30 minutes. If you have one physical attribute, and I think this is a very interesting twist, everybody, at the end of this podcast, one physical attribute of an actual dragon, what would it be?
What's my physical?
Yeah.
I breathe fire.
If you have one physical, if we're all talking about dragons and being digital dragons, what's the one physical attribute of an actual dragon?
I want to be able to breathe fire on everybody that drives me crazy.
What?
I mean, I can't be, dragons can breathe fire. I want to be able to breathe fire.
But I think they should also be good listeners. Don't you?
Oh, well, I was talking about what I want. You're talking about them. Oh, see, there I go again, self-centered, Megan. Yeah, you know what? I think I think that the one thing that about becoming a dragon starts about understanding that willingness to change isn't about technology. Willingness to change comes down to caring about people, which starts with your employees and your customers, and then working out towards what type of layers of technology can really help take your business to the next level.
Dan Newman, you are a rock star today, and you were a rock star the first day I met you many, many years ago in the digital space. So thank you so much for being here today and sharing your wisdom bombs with all of us. I'm excited to unfold more news with our audience about alliances and friendships and all the things that matter to us in business. And, hey, go ahead and pick up Dan's book. Do it. I think you're going to learn a lot. And thank you for being with us today.
I'll drop a link on the Twitters in the Work Trends chat.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everybody. We're out of time. Talk to you on the Twitters.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.